Good evening and welcome to this unique performance that we're putting on behalf of Doctors for Nepal. We expect this to be a truly global experience that we can all join together for an hour of exceptional storytelling. My name's Dr. Kate Yarrow. I founded the UK charity Doctors for Nepal. We fund the training of doctors, nurses and midwives from impoverished backgrounds in Nepal. Hopefully over the next hour or two, you're going to learn a little bit more about what we do. So I'd like to introduce you to our storyteller and musician. Ashley Ramsden is an exceptional storyteller. I can vouch for that from personal experience, having watched him a number of times. He's joined by Ariel Gragnani, who is also a fantastic guitarist. They're going to be putting on 3 short stories tonight, which are all about living in fear and responding to crisis. I'm sure that these are things that we can all resonate with us all at the moment in these times of global crisis. These stories will hopefully bring us together for a short amount of time where we can reflect and hopefully relax. First of all, I'd like to introduce you to Dr. Nahakul Shahi, who's one of our first ever doctors to have graduated in Nepal. Over to you, Nahakul.
Namaste. My name is Dr. Nahakul Shahi. I am one of the first fully trained doctors sponsored by Doctors for Nepal, DFN. I hail from Kalikot, a remote district in Karnali province in the western part of Nepal. After graduating from Patan Academy of Health Sciences in 2017, I returned back to my village. At the district hospital there, I worked as a medical officer for over 3 years. I even received advanced skilled birth attendant training, as a result of which I could independently perform countless cesarean section operations in a resource-poor setting. I feel really proud to give back to my community. Thank you for listening to my part of the story today. And remember, it's your donations today that can help others like myself change the lives of so many people, so many patients in Nepal. Thank you.
And our storyteller and his musician are giving their time very generously for free to the charity. However, it would be absolutely fantastic if you were able to learn a little bit more about the charity tonight and perhaps offer a donation. Along the screen at the moment, you'll see the website where you can do donations. But now it's over to Ashley and to Ariel for their fantastic performance. I'll see you in an hour or so.
There was once a village, a very happy village, with local shops, a terrific pub, a monthly market. Tradesmen, artists, craftsmen all lived there. There was a village festival every year with strolling players and musicians. People would sell delicious homemade food, and the farmers their local produce. And for years it was so. But one day there came a rumor of a fierce and terrible monster that was ravaging the land. First it was a rumor, and who knows where rumors begin. But one day a man came into the village shouting, "Run! Run for your lives! There's a monster in the far corner of the far field." And the people dropped whatever they were doing, and they went back to their houses, and there they remained. And they only left those houses when necessary. And word spread of this fierce and terrible monster. And the stories grew and grew until they had touched every lip and tongue. And the pub closed, and the market closed, and the presence of the monster became so powerful that friend no longer met friend, and no one was sure when it would strike or where. and time passed. And then one day, into the village came a knight riding a horse. "What is all this nonsense I've heard about this monster? I will deal it the death blow it deserves and rid the world of this nuisance." And he rode off to the far corner of the far field. But when he arrived there was nothing except an enormous watermelon. So he rode back, laughing. "You fools! There's nothing out there, nothing but a watermelon." "What?" said the people. "How dare you laugh at us? You think that we have suffered needlessly? Have you not heard what this monster has done? Get out of here!" And they drove him out of the village. And time passed. And then one day, into the village came another hero. "I have heard about your suffering and this monster, and I have come to help you. My trusty lance has killed many a beast in its time, and this one will not escape me." And he too rode off to the far corner of the far field. But when he arrived there was nothing but a watermelon. So he called the village elders together, and he said, "My friends, I'm sorry to say that you have been duped. There's nothing there but a watermelon." The villagers' fists turned white with fury. "What? Are you saying that we have suffered needlessly? People like you are dangerous. People like you are a liability." And they reached for sticks and stones, and he barely escaped with his life. And time passed, and the face of the monster was on every face in the village. And then one day, into the village came a woman. And she spoke to the people and she said, "I have heard about this monster. Would you like me to help you?" "Well," they said, who are you?" I'm a storyteller." Now it was the villagers' turn to laugh. "What can stories do against such things?" "Well," said the woman, "you know what they say. Those who tell stories rule the world." The people shrugged their shoulders. They had heard so many stories, but somebody pointed out the field, and she set off. 2 hours later, she returned, covered from head to toe in the flesh, rind, pulp, and juice of an enormous watermelon. "I have killed your monster," she said, "and I am glad to tell you that you may now return to your lives. It was a fierce and terrible fight, and I barely escaped with my life. But after a good wash, I'll join you for a drink if you like, and tell you about some of the other monsters that I've met on my way." And the people cheered and welcomed her, and they invited her into their homes. And she stayed for a long time, and she told them many stories. And some of those stories I'd like to tell you tonight. On one of those evenings, someone turned to the storyteller and said, "Tell me, how did you find the courage to face that monster?" "Well," she said, "I remembered a story that I heard long ago. You may know it. There was once a a city, a famous city that people came to visit from far and wide. Now, there was only one entrance to that city. And one day, to that gateway, there came a violent and terrible giant. And if anyone approached the giant, he would rise up and threaten them, and wave his arms and shout and scream so that everyone felt for their lives. And it wasn't long before no one could leave the city and no one could enter. Now the king of that land was worried. He saw the suffering of his people. He wondered what he could do. Fortunately, there was a woman, a wise woman, that he often went to for advice. And they sat together for a long time, and she told him something. The next day he set out, and the giant caught sight of him. And he rose up, shouting and screaming as he had done so many times. For a moment, the king faltered. Then he remembered the old woman's advice, and he took a step and another step, and then something strange happened. The giant seemed to be getting smaller and smaller and smaller, until by the time the king reached him, it was only the size of an ant, and the giant was now sitting on the king's hand. And the king looked at him and said, "Tell me, what is your name?" My name, said the giant, is Fear. Once upon a time, there was a young girl, and one bitterly cold day, she fell ill with a terrible cough. She coughed and coughed. There was a rattling pain in her chest. It was hard to speak, yet alone breathe. Her parents were worried, and so they took blankets and animal skins and they covered her up and they laid her by the side of the fire. But she did not get better. She only got worse. The light faded from her eyes. The life seemed to be leaving her. So they called for the old medicine woman, Duckegg. Duckegg was old, 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 old. No one knew when she was born. She had creases and lines on her face, lines that spread like the rays of the sun whenever she smiled. Into the tent she came. She went to where the girl was lying, and she very carefully pulled back the skins and blankets and laid her ear on the girl's pale chest and listened for a long time. All that could be heard was the fast, hard breathing of the girl. And then old Duckegg raised her head and said, "The sound I hear is the sound of a she-fox. She is running across the hard, crusty snow. She is limping. Oh, the poor she-fox. She has far to go. I can hear her feet breaking through the crust of the snow. That is the sound of the girl's chest." And the girl's father went to Duckegg and said, "I am a hunter, and I will go and find that fox and bring it back to the village." "Good. Yes, bring it back," said Duckegg. So he put on his snowshoes and he put on his skins and he set out. And he walked for a long time, and at last he saw them. The fox prints breaking through the ice and snow. The places where the tail of the fox had swept the snow to one side. On and on he went until just before dark he saw her. She was moving slowly. She was limping. Meanwhile, back in the tent, old Duckegg was listening to the girl's chest. "The sound I hear is the sound of the she-fox. I can hear your father's stepping through the snow as well. I can hear him. He has seen the fox. It won't be long now." When dark fell, the hunter made a fire. In the darkness, he saw the fox watching him. Meanwhile, back in the tent, old Duckegg was listening. "The sound I hear is the sound of the crackling of a fire. The girl will be hot tonight. She will have a fever." All night long, the hunter sat by the side of the fire, keeping watch. At dawn, he rose and set out again. She was moving very slow now, her feet breaking through the crust of the snow. Cha, cha, cha. Back in the tent, the girl was coughing. At last, the hunter caught up with the little fox. He grabbed her and held her in his arms. "Why are you doing this to me? Why are you running after me? Leave me alone. Kill me now." "No, I will not kill you. Come, my little one. I want to take you back to our village to heal my little girl." Back to the village the hunter went. It took him a day and a half. When he arrived at dawn the next day and came into the tent, old Duckegg smiled, and the lines spread out across her face like the sun at dawn. "Give me the fox," she said. She took it and laid it on the skins by the side of the fire. Now, give the fox something to eat. And the fox ate and slept, and the girl slept. And then they woke. They both woke at the same time and looked at one another. Give the fox something more to eat. And the fox ate again and slept. They both slept. Once more they woke. Now, said Duckegg, open the door flap and let the fox go. The little fox. She stood on her feet and sniffed the air. The girl, she sat up. Old Duckegg helped her. And she watched the fox run out into the snow. And as its steps grew fainter and fainter, so did the girl's cough. The fox was strong now. The girl too rose and watched it disappear into the distance. And as it went, her cough left her too. For a long time, they stood there saying nothing. Then old Duckegg turned to the mother and father and said, tell me, did the fox kill the girl or the girl the fox? The mother laid her hand on old Duckegg's arm and said, neither. You cured them both. And Duckegg laughed. And the lines on her face spread out like the sun at dawn. There was once a man who was not feeling very well, so he went to the doctor. And the doctor examined him, listened to his heart, looked down his throat, took his pulses, and said, yes, you are indeed very sick. But there's only one thing that will help you in your state. You've just got to believe in yourself. Thank you very much, said the man. But what is there left to believe in? I've lost my job. My girlfriend has left me. I have no money. Don't worry, said the doctor. You've just got to learn to believe in yourself. If you feel like going out for a walk, take a walk. If you feel like having a meal with friends, well, go and have a meal with them. Is that all the advice you have, said the man. Trust me, said the doctor. Help will come, even money. Well, the man went out and the sun was shining bright, and he thought to himself, well, I may as well take a walk. And he found himself down by the side of the river. And as he was going along, he noticed that there was a priest there who was washing his face in the water. And suddenly the man's eyes fell on the back of the priest's neck. And he didn't know why, but he felt this irresistible urge to slap the priest on the back of the neck. He knew he shouldn't do it, but he just couldn't help himself. And of course, he remembered the doctor's advice. So he rolled up his sleeve, he crept up behind the priest, and thwack, he hit him on the back of the neck. The priest fell into the water. But the man couldn't help but laugh. It had made such a wonderful sound. The priest pulled himself out of the water and said, what on earth are you doing? Wait, said the man. Before you do anything, before you say another word, answer me one question. That magnificent slap, that noise I just heard, did it come from your neck or my hand? What, said the priest. This is ridiculous. I'm taking you off to the police station. He took him down to the police station, and the police said, well, go speak to the judge. So off they went to see the judge. And the priest explained just what had happened. And the judge looked at the man and saw how poor he was and how depressed and deranged. And he listened to the priest as well, and he said, look, why don't you forget about it? I'm sure it was a mistake. I will not forget about it. This man hit me, and I want some kind of recompense. Well, said the judge, do you have any money? No, I have nothing. There you go, said the judge. You're in the forgiveness business. Please forgive him. I'm sure it was just a random thing that won't happen again. I will not forgive him. I want some kind of recompense. And the two men began to argue. And while they were arguing, the man's eyes fell on the judge's neck. It was a much fatter, juicier neck than that of the priest. And so he crept up behind the judge and thwacked him on the back of the neck. Now it was the priest's turn to laugh, and the judge's turn to get angry. Well, there's no real ending to this story, except to say that the man went away feeling a lot better. A chickpea almost leapt over the rim of the pot where it was being boiled. The cook knocked it down with a ladle. Why are you doing this to me? Don't try to jump out. You think I'm torturing you. I'm giving you flavor, so you can mix with spices and rice and become the lovely vitality of a human being. Remember, when you drank rain in the garden, that was for this. Grace first, sexual pleasures, then a boiling new life begins. And the friend has something good to eat. Eventually, the chickpea will say to the cook, boil me some more. I can't do this work by myself. I'm like an elephant that dreams of gardens back in Hindustan and doesn't pay attention to the driver. You're my cook, my driver, my way into existence. I love your cooking. The cook says, I was like you once, fresh from the ground. I boiled once in time and once in the body, 2 fierce boilings. My animal soul grew powerful, but I controlled it with practices and boiled some more and boiled once beyond that and became your teacher. Once in India, a young man lived with his mother. And for many years, the two of them dreamed of visiting the holy city of Lumbini in Nepal, which is said to be the birthplace of the Buddha himself. They talked about it often, but as happens, the occasion never really presented itself to go. They kept putting things off. And in the end, the mother said, "You go, my son, only promise me that you will bring me something back from the holy city, some memento, some relic, whatever you can find." And the son promised, and he set out for Lumbini. And he walked and he met many pilgrims on the way. He spoke to many holy men and women, and at last he arrived at the holy city and he visited the great pillar there, and he visited all of the other wonders in that place, and he sat and he prayed and he chanted, and then little by little, slowly, day after day, he made his way home. And it was only when he was outside of the village where he lived that he realized that he'd completely forgotten to bring his mother what he had promised. It was then that his eyes fell on the corpse of a dog on the side of the road. He looked at its gleaming teeth, and suddenly he had an idea. He reached down, he picked out one of the teeth, he carefully wrapped it in a cloth, and he brought it back to his mother, saying that this was one of the teeth of the Buddha, that this was a holy relic, that he had searched high and low to find it, and he had given the last little saving that he had and worked many hours to bring it back to her. She carefully took the tooth and she placed it in the corner of the house, and then she began to pray. And she made a little shrine around it. Hour after hour she prayed before that tooth. She chanted, she meditated. And then a strange thing began to happen. The tooth began to glow. Brighter and brighter it glowed. Soon it was unmistakable. Someone would come into the house and they would say, "What is that? What is that great light shining back at me?" And one day a woman came in who was sick, and suddenly her sickness was healed. One day a man came in who had broken his leg. He too was healed. And it wasn't long before a great line of pilgrims were waiting outside the door for admittance to this holy shrine. And all the while, the woman's son had to put up with these people inside the house, constantly knocking at the door, not giving him a moment's peace. And in the end, he could stand it no longer. And he called to his mother and he said, "Mother, this tooth I brought back from Lumbini, it is not one of the Buddha's teeth at all. I completely forgot. It's the tooth of an old dog that I found outside the village." "What?" she said. "You mean all these miracles and this is not a holy tooth? But my son, look what has happened. Look what has happened to our lives. Look what has happened to these people." In despair, he rushed out of the house, slamming the door behind him. But there, waiting for him outside the house, was the Buddha himself. "She's right, you know," he said. "It is one of mine." And he smiled, and the man could see for himself. Maimonides arrived at the palace of the Sultan of Egypt, he found the court there filled with the best doctors in the land. The Sultan entered and announced, "I have called you here because I need a new doctor. Whoever I choose will have great wealth and power." Maimonides was not interested in wealth and power, but he thought to himself, if I become the Sultan's doctor, I will be able to help and heal people, and in that way to help or even heal myself. The Sultan tested the doctors with many difficult questions until only two of them remained, Maimonides and a certain Kamun. "Great Sultan," said Kamun, "I am a far better doctor than this man here, for I can cure the blind." Said Maimonides, "I'd like to see that." Kamun clapped his hands, and into the room stumbled a man with blank eyes. Kamun went up to the man and spread some ointment on those eyes. Then he muttered some strange syllable and wiped the ointment away. The man blinked and looked around him as if amazed. "Behold, I have cured him." Maimonides suspected trickery, and so he said, "Tell me, how long have you been blind?" "Since birth." "Then what is this I'm holding in my hands?" "It is a scarf." "And what color is it?" "It is red." "You are correct, but you have not revealed the truth. If you had been blind since birth, you would not have been able to say at once that this was red." "You are right," said the Sultan. "We have been tricked." Kamun threw himself before the Sultan. "Please, give me another chance. I too was deceived. I thought this man was blind." "Why should we?" "Because you have many enemies, and amongst them those who would poison you. I know more about poisons and antidotes than any other man." "And how will you prove that?" "Well, let this man and I remain in the palace and try to poison one another. Whoever succeeds is clearly the best doctor." "Very well," said the Sultan, "it shall be so. You will remain in the palace, you will eat the same food, you will remain in the same room. Let us see which one of you is the best doctor." Day after day, Maimonides and Kamun carefully watched one another, not sure when the one or the other might slip some poison into a food or drink, lay it on a brush or pillow. Kamun tried every poison he could think of. He put drops on Maimonides' clothes, hoping it would burn into his skin. He spread poison on his pillow, hoping that he would breathe it in at night. But whatever poison he chose, Maimonides always found out which one it was, and the antidote as well. Kamun became more and more concerned. What poison could this doctor be using against him? Day by day, his fear increased. He stopped eating and drinking. He scarcely slept at all. He did not dare touch anything or hardly breathe. Finally, he had to drink something. Maimonides poured himself a glass of milk. Kamun thought to himself, his drink must be safe, and he snatched it out of his hand and gulped it down. "Ah," said Maimonides, "I knew the time would come." Kamun turned a deathly pale. "You've tricked me. You wanted me to drink it, didn't you? It's poisoned." He felt his throat tighten. His hands began to tremble. He grew dizzy. He rushed out of the room, desperate to discover what kind of poison it was, but he could not detect any unusual taste or smell in the milk. He tried every sort and kind of antidote, risking more and more dangerous cures. The next morning, the guards discovered him lying cold on the marble floor. The Sultan was summoned. Maimonides examined him. My lord, his heart has stopped. You have won, Maimonides. You shall become my doctor. But tell me, how did you poison him? I did not poison him, my lord. I am a doctor. I heal people. I do not kill them. Then, if the milk was not poisoned, why did Kamun die? He tortured himself with worry, my lord. He tried every possible antidote, risking more and more dangerous cures. He could not stand the stress. In the end, his heart collapsed. Are you telling me that Kamun killed himself? My lord, Kamun's fear destroyed him. Fear is the worst poison of all. In the little village of Plochnik, it hadn't rained for 40 days and 40 nights. The people were desperate. The cows had stopped their milk, the grass had dried, the leaves on the trees had shriveled. Outside of the village, the lake was nothing but a muddy puddle. So the people gathered inside the synagogue and prayed. But no rain came. The butchers, the bakers, the candlestick makers, they all prayed, but still no rain came. Even the rabbi. Then from the back of the synagogue came a voice, maybe I should pray. And everybody laughed because it was Shmuel the fool. Shmuel had a little shop on the outskirts of the village. But he was such a fool that if you brought him shoes, for he was a cobbler, to fix, well, he'd do them, he'd do a great job, but he'd forget to charge you. But it was a strange thing with Shmuel. There was a bear that had come into the village once and everybody else ran for their lives. Shmuel brought it a bowl of milk and it went happily on its way. And then there were those beggars that turned up as well, knocking on everybody's door. The only person that took them in was Shmuel. It was a strange thing. Whenever there was a problem, whenever there was a difficulty or an argument between neighbours, Shmuel always seemed to be there. And before the people knew it, they were laughing as though they were the best of friends. So Shmuel prayed, Lord, please send us rain. And no sooner were the words out of his mouth than great thunderclouds rolled up and down, hammered the rain. The people were delighted. Their prayers had been answered. They ran out of the synagogues, their tongues wagging. Well, it rained and it rained and it rained. And it didn't stop raining. And soon the lake was overflowing and the waters were lapping on every doorstep, and the people gathered back inside the synagogue, begging the rain to stop. They all prayed, the butchers, the bakers, the candlestick makers, the doctors, the lawyers, the rabbi. But still down thundered the rain. And then all of a sudden there was this mighty rushing wind, and all of the candles in the synagogue went out, and there people sat in the darkness. And as they sat there, they heard a voice. Maybe I should pray. Shmuel the fool. No sooner had Shmuel stopped praying than the rain too ceased. Not a drop on the synagogue roof. Back rolled the clouds, out came the sun, blew from horizon to horizon. Only this time the people, they did not rush out. They turned to the rabbi and they said, why is it when we pray and you pray, nothing happens, but when Shmuel prays, God listens? And the rabbi said, I'll have to think about it. One never knows. So he went home. And that night he had a dream. And in his dream he saw himself standing before a doorway. And around the doorway were lights, 36 lights. And he went through the door, and there sitting at a table were 36 men and women. And right at their head, Shmuel the fool. And when the rabbi woke up, he called all of the people together and he said, you wouldn't believe it. Our Shmuel is a Lamed-Vavnik. A Lamed what? A Lamed-Vavnik. Don't you know the old story that in the world at any time there are 36 holy men or women, the great helpers of humankind, and if ever there is a difficulty, if ever there is a problem or a crisis, one of the holy ones will come. You mean to say that our Shmuel is a Lamed-Vavnik? That's incredible. We must tell everybody about it. We could become famous. And they ran down to Shmuel's shop. When they got there, no sign of Shmuel. Only the last pair of shoes that he'd fixed on his bench. But Shmuel himself was gone. Well, said the rabbi, that's a Lamed-Vavnik for you. For if it ever becomes known that a Lamed-Vavnik is a Lamed-Vavnik, they lose their power. So no one saw Shmuel again in Plochnik. Someone said that they saw him recently in New York, I think it was, selling papers on the street. Someone said that they spotted him in a hospital somewhere, working for the NHS. Someone said that they spotted him in your village, or was it mine, fixing shoes. Shmuel was never seen in Plochnik again. But it was a strange thing. Another cobbler moved into his shop. And only this time, no one laughed at him, no one mocked him, no one made fun of him, because, as the rabbi said, one never knows. And the time came for the storyteller to leave the village. She had been there many months, but it was time to move on. The people accompanied her, and on their way they happened to pass by the far corner of the far field, and they were talking. It seems, they said, that these monsters can take many shapes. Giants, tyrants. Yes, said the storyteller. Anyone. You, me, even a watermelon. And the people laughed, and the storyteller laughed too, and went on her way.
Thank you so much for spending the last hour of your time watching these brilliant performances from Ashley and Ariel. I'd like to say a huge thank you on behalf of the charity and all of you watching wherever you are around the world.
You just
As you can see by my dog behind me, we're certainly very relaxed around here and enjoyed that performance. It was brilliant. As I said before, Ashley and Ariel have given their time for free, which is really, really generous of them. So it's hoped that if you enjoyed the performance and you learn a little bit more about the charity tonight, you might consider sponsoring us and our students. Obviously, in COVID times, we understand that people get less money than normal. And for us, it's been much harder to raise funds. Normally, we would be doing face-to-face fundraising, but this is the best we can do. But I hope that you've enjoyed it wherever you are. I'm now going to hand over just to a really short clip that we've made about the charity so you can learn a little bit more about what we do and how you can help sponsor us in the future. Thank you so much for tuning in and have a good evening.
Doctors for Nepal is a UK registered charity which aims to improve healthcare in rural Nepal. The charity provides scholarships to students from impoverished backgrounds from remote areas of the country. They're carefully selected and then attend medical school or nursing colleges in Nepal. Once graduated, the students return to their communities to serve as doctors, nurses and midwives, providing much needed medical care to tens of thousands of patients and are bonded for a minimum of 2 years.
I am really motivated and I'm really willing to work in the village that I grew up in. So I even after my postgraduate training, I'm willing to go back and work there as a doctor.
The Himalayan mountains mean that most of Nepal's population live in geographically isolated communities. It can take days for the sick and injured to reach healthcare, often undertaking unimaginably dangerous and difficult journeys. Nepal is one of the poorest countries in the world, with incredibly basic standards of living. Water sources are often contaminated, leading to disease outbreaks, and the poor ventilation from open fires results in chronic respiratory problems. Up to 45% of under 5s are malnourished, which leads to numerous health problems, including high child mortality rates. In rural areas, there are low levels of education, particularly of women, and there's still high maternal and infant mortality rates. And then, of course, there are the devastating natural disasters. Due to the high costs, it's just too expensive for most candidates from rural areas to be able to afford the training to become doctors or nurses. So we provide disadvantaged students with scholarships to study in medical and nursing colleges in Nepal.
Doctors from Nepal has been doing a great job in selecting students from the remote areas, the underprivileged, bright students. Those are willing to go back after their medical training and serve there. For Nepalese people, I think that it's a very important thing.
It's vital that local communities are empowered to take ownership of their medical staff so that sustainable local healthcare is provided. Doctors find themselves becoming community leaders as well as providing much needed healthcare.
People see me as their role model, and then many small children, they come up to me and then they say that they also want to be like me one day. That's a very satisfying feeling.
As a result of generous support, we currently sponsor 5 trainee doctors, 9 student nurses and 2 trainee midwives. We are immensely proud that a further 6 doctors and 2 nurses have now completed their training and are working back in rural areas of Nepal. So this is where you come in. If you would like to help Doctors for Nepal, visit our website where you'll find details of how you can set up a standing order, make a one-off payment, or perhaps put on your own fundraising event. Your donations really do make a difference to healthcare in Nepal.
Today I'm creating a big impact, going back to my village, to the lives of all the people. You are not only giving your money, but at the same time you are also saving lives. So I would like to extremely thank you and extend my gratitude from the very core of my heart.
Namaste. 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 Namaste.
For anyone interested, the great storyteller Nancy Mellon, counsellor and therapist, and I will be running an online course entitled Health, Heart, Hope, Enlivening the Immune System. For some years, we worked together at Emerson College, bringing together Eastern and Western medicine and the different practices, and looking at the organs of the body and their individual intelligence. At this time of such uncertainty, we have come together again to offer this online course for anyone who would like to join us. So please check out the link below, and if you are interested, register your interest, and we'll get back in touch with you as soon as we have the dates that we will run the course. Thank you.